So welcome to D-Life channel again, friends. So today we are having a sort of a get-together session, a sort of webinar or seminar. Uh, this is organized by the D-Life and for the D-Life members. So today our intention is that we will be discussing something on the lab parameters, the values, so that we have a clear understanding of what the value stands for. And we'll also have a small discussion on the various antidiabetics which are used. Because in most of us, some of us must be practicing as a nutritionist. So it will be useful to know which drug to knock off and which drugs can stay for some time. So we'll just have a very short understanding of this. Though of course it is not a replacement uh, for for medical advice. Nevertheless, it is just a short understanding. And for all viewers, I suggest that we should be. This is the entire episode. It doesn't constitute any medical advice. People should actually consult their doctor to get proper medical advice, and people should also consult a proper low carb nutritionist for any dietary change. So this is a sort of caveat which we'll like to add. So today we have Arun Kumar with us. So Arun Kumar is having more than 3 or 4 decades of experience in pharmaceutical industry. So he will be able to explain the lab parameters very well to us. And then we have Anjali Anand, who is a nutritionist based at Chennai. So I think her blog or website is named as Awesome Chef. We also have Ashish Pabari with us, member of D Life, and we have Ram Gopal with us, member of D Life, and we have Jasmeet Kaur. So Jasmeet is also undergoing the D Life diploma course as of now, and we also have a D Life member, Neha Gaud. So among these three, so we have three members who are done diploma in low carb nutrition from D Life. That is Anjali, me, as well as Jasmeet is currently almost done with it. So first of all, I invite Arun Kumar to explain to us about this lab reports, the different parameters, the ranges. How do we really understand this from a very basic perspective? Yeah, Arun Kumar.
Okay, so good afternoon to all. Actually, lab parameters are quite a vast subject, and you cannot discuss in webinar in entire things. I mean, we have to give one by one. So today, I think if we discuss the complete blood count, which many times people are asking to me in forum when they are getting the test report done by lab. So actually, before that, complete blood count, can we have some knowledge about the blood? I think many of us who are having the science background and read this, having some knowledge about the blood. So I start just from the blood that, blood is the tissue which moves to each and every part of our body. And blood is very important tissue, which even not only carries the oxygen nutrients to each and every cells, but also taking out carbon dioxide and other gases to be excreted from the lungs. So this is the main function of the blood. So if you look at the blood, it has two components. That is liquid part, which we know as a plasma protein. Actually, it is made of the fibrinogen and some protein like albumin, etc. 3, 4 proteins are there. And second part is the cells. So blood cells, which are the important and which we are going to discuss here. So in blood cells, as you all know, that there are three types of the cells, which is erythrocytes, also known as the red blood corpuscles. So because it is red in color, so that's why the name is the red blood cells. Then second is the white blood cells. That is also called as the leukocytes. That is the white blood cells. And third one is the platelets, also called thrombocytes. So if you look at the red blood cells, actually among all cells, red blood cells is the highest in the number, comprise almost about 45% of the blood volume. So first we look towards the red blood cells, what it is, what is the meaning, what is the job it has to do, and different, test lab reports interpretation to be given here. So let us start from the, RBC or erythrocytes. So if you look at the erythrocytes, They are the number of erythrocytes actually when you got from the lab, the RBC, that is the number of erythrocytes in 1 cubic millimeter of the blood. That is the number, which actually give us the some idea about the what is the status of RBC, whether it is low or it is a high or it is a normal. So sometimes it gives the indication of the some of the disease we are having, the deficiency of RBC, or is maybe the due to the blood loss, maybe the hemolysis, I mean lysis of the blood or red blood cells, or maybe due to the bone marrow suppression. Because you all know that blood cells are manufactured at bone marrow, which is a process called hemopoiesis. So hemopoiesis is the process which actually manufacture the red blood cells and then comes to the blood stream. So when it is increases, it found when the RBC increases, it is due to either you are moving to some high altitude or you are doing some physical exercise, strenuous exercise, walking say 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer like that. After immediately, if you go for the test, you will find RBC number is higher, but it is a natural. And if it is now low, then it gives some other ideas like you have some deficiency of either vitamin B12 or folate or maybe the iron. So if it is iron or folate, normally it is called as the iron deficiency anemia, or overall RBC, low RBC is categorized as anemia. Let us go for some other I'm going to some other terminology which is used by the lab here. Say, you know that matured RBC lifespan is almost about 120 days. It varies from person to person, but on an average, it is 120 days. Some may have some 100 days or some may have 110 days also. Actually, it is important what is the lifespan of this, because if you go for the surgery, yes, anybody? If you go for the surgery, doctor may ask for the autologous blood transfusion. Means you are transfusing your blood before the surgery. So that in that case, this RBC count is very important. Doctor will know that whether your blood is suitable for you or no after the surgery. Then in the RBC, there is one component which is called hemoglobin, which is hemoglobin is main job is carrying oxygen from lungs to different cells. And then hemoglobin is the molecule in the red cells. One red cells contains millions of the hemoglobin particles. So that if hemoglobin, later on I will discuss what is the meaning of hemoglobin, low hemoglobin or high hemoglobin, that I will discuss later on. But in short term, I can say that decrease in hemoglobin occurs in the same region decrease in the RBC, like decrease in the folate, decrease in the iron, decrease in the vitamin B12. That is an indication of the hemoglobin, low hemoglobin. Normally, a male having the normal hemoglobin of 14 to 18, normally it is 15, 16, but if you go to the higher altitude, the people who are living in the hilly area, they are having the higher hemoglobin rate. And for women, it is the between 14 to 16. So accordingly, we can judge. But these are the one thing. But other things are also which correlated with the anemia. Mainly, it is hematocrit. Hematocrit is the test which measures the volume of the cells as a percentage of total volume of the blood. So that is because that is very important, because if hematocrit is low, that means your blood is you have taken a lot of fluid or intravenous fluid, or your RBC is not, bone marrow is not manufacturing sufficient quantity of RBC. Regions may be different, coming from aplastic anemia to the just simple deficiency of the vitamins and folate and iron. But if it is increased, then it means that you have a dehydration. If you have a low water intake or low fluid intake, it will indication it is a decrease. It is an increase of the hematocrit. So normal value of hematocrit, which is varies from 42 to 52% in men, and 37 to almost 47% in women. If it is go above that, because hematocrit, if you watch that in the blood test report, hematocrit is the first or second term written in the CBC count. Why? Because it is very important for doctor. Recently, if you see the spread of dengue, where normally doctor can identify if your hematocrit is high, that means it is an infection caused by the dengue virus and other virus too. If there is other virus also, hematocrit will rise. Second, hematocrit will also rise due to some other conditions like bone marrow, uh, some problem, say malignancy and all. But we are discussing here only the common cause of the rise in the hematocrit. So hematocrit, if you see in your blood test report, if it is higher, that means you are taking food less than what you need to take. Maybe simple water. I have seen recently two dengue patients where I was in contact with them. They have the high hematocrit. I simply ask that you start doing the 8 to 10 glasses of water every day, apart from the fruit juice or nariyal pani, whatever you can do. Within 2 days, his hematocrit will come down to low, normal level. So that is a clear-cut indication that you are dehydrated or not. So take care of that hematocrit. Second is the reticulocytes. Reticulocytes are the cells which is the newly formed or newborn RBC. That gives a indication whether your bone marrow is functioning in the right condition or not. If bone marrow is not functioning right condition, I mean not functioning sufficiently, then your reticulocytes count will be low. And if it is normal, then your bone marrow is functioning well. That is, a reticulocytes is also to be taken in case of the, suppose you have the, just a minute, suppose you have some of the disease where there is a hemolysis, I mean loss of the RBC, then reticulocytes plays an important role. If it is coming right in the amount it is required by the blood, then it's all right. Otherwise, you have to take care of the bone marrow test and all, because that indicating something different, maybe the malignancy and all. Now, some of the other words which are coming to this is MCV. It is written in the blood count, I mean red blood count, it is written. MCV is the full form is mean corpuscle volume. It's a volume measure average size of the RBC. Size of RBC is very important here. If average size is RBC is normal, then your RBC is functioning well. But due to some problem like less vitamins B12 or low iron, serum iron level or low folate level, your, I mean, this RBC can be smaller or can be even higher, both cases. So if it is smaller, then it is, you can say it is causing due to the anemia. Now doctor has to find out whether it is the vitamin B12 deficiency, iron deficiency or folate deficiency and or deficiency of all three. Low volume also indicated, I mean, that is some in case of some poisoning like lead poisoning and other, in that case also low volume is indicated. Now second is, I'm giving a small definition of all this. If you have any question, you can ask me after that. Second term is usually the MCH is the average weight of hemoglobin per RBC. So MCH is normal value of MCH is nearly about 27 to 31 picogram. Okay. So if it is normal hemoglobin, then oxygen carrying will be sufficient. RBC is doing sufficient job by doing oxygen carrying capacity from the lungs to each cells. Next is the MCHC. MC is the average concentration of hemoglobin in each RBC. Okay. MC is the normal level can be seen with the blood loss. So suppose that you have a blood loss, hemolysis, suppose you are going for the, surgery, a big surgery, then maybe chances of the blood loss. So in that case, you will find that MCHC is low. Then this will also leads to your skin pale, because when RBC MCHC will be low, I mean total concentration of the RBC is low, you will look pale. That is the one indication doctor can find out from just looking towards the patient. Next is RDW. RDW is the quantitative estimate of uniformity of individual RBC. Means all the RBC are uniform, or majority of the RBC are the smaller than the size or larger than the size. That is the condition which is called, and in percentage it is called, normal value is 11.5 to 14.5 is the normal value. Okay. Now comes to platelets. Platelets, you all know, is the component of the blood which is, responsible for clotting of the blood. If the platelets is low, then there will be hemorrhage, there will be loss of blood, and it is difficult to clot the blood in that case. So platelets is very important to judge, not by numbers. Usually we see the numbers, platelet numbers. We all know that normal value is 1,50,000 to 4,50,000, or some labs are telling 3,50,000. But anyway, the number of platelets is okay. That's one part. But second part is the function of platelets. And here also there are two things. If function of platelets is higher, I mean it is having more functioning the platelets, I mean function is high, then there is chance of the thrombosis. And in case of atherosclerosis, thrombosis is very, very important to take care of that. So in case of atherosclerosis, platelets count will be also increased, and as well as platelets function will be also increased. So that is the two important thing. But problem is this, that in platelets function, we don't have any test. We have to just assess. Doctor have to assess clinically that function is good or not. Then normal platelet value, as you know, 150 to 450. Some labs are taking 350 also. That depends on the the reagent chemical they use, or the way they judge the method of this. In case of thrombocytopenia, that is a word called for, used for low thrombocytes or low platelets count, may occur for many regions, and one of the regions is aplastic anemia, some drug-induced, or some prolonged infection, or some viral infection. Like in dengue, you will find low platelets volume. Then we are coming with the white blood cells. These are one of the important white blood cells. White blood cells count is very important. It is counted by two ways: total WBC count and differential WBC count. Differential WBC count means will count of each and every type of the white blood cells. So normal level of WBC, total count of WBC varies from 4,500 to 11,000 approximately. Lab to lab, it may vary from this side, that side slightly. The white blood cells count is, differential count is, we are discussing with the each and every type of the white blood cells. First is eosinophil. Eosinophil, these are the found in each area of skin, airways, respiratory tract, and in addition to the bloodstream. Bloodstream mein to it is there, it is a part of that. But in addition to the bloodstream, this eosinophil is found in airways and skin. And that's why you will find, since it is related to your allergic reactions, if you have an allergy, so you'll find that airways and skin is the first to respond to that allergy. So that is there to check the allergy. So increased number of eosinophil simply indicating some allergic reactions or inflammatory allergic situation. If you have allergy, even simple itching, simple flu-like symptoms and all, you will find that your eosinophil will rise. and your doctor will go ask for the test for eosinophil. That indicates that, okay, whether it is allergic reactions or not. Second is the basophil. Basophil is the part of the WBC, which is having two types. I mean, having, if it is in the bloodstream, it is called basophil, but it also having in the tissues, like your tissues of the nose, I mean, sinus, or other nasopharynx, and as well as the on the skin. And basophil is responsible for this here, I mean, histamine reactions, histamine secretion. These are the things which basophil do. Basophil actually in also found in the gastrointestinal tract because it also releases histamine 1. There is histamine 2 type, histamine 1 and histamine 2. Histamine 1 is responsible for your acid secretion in the stomach. That is the starting point of the acid secretion. That is another issue. But this basophil is also found in the gastrointestinal tract. Thereby, it releases the histamine 1. But if it is found in the nasopharynx area or skin, there it releases the histamine 2, which is responsible for the allergic reactions. That's why you will, if you have a cold, you will first find the running nose. And if you have some contact with some itchy substance or allergic substance, you will find itch on the skin. That's why. Then third is the monocytes. Monocytes are the WBC which fight with the infections, injury. It actually, you can say, the repair the injured part, and so this is available, not available all the time, but it is available in the bloodstream. But in case of the any injury, suddenly its number will go high and it will reach to the site of the injury. And that injury may be due to infection, that injury may be due to external trauma or something like this. This also, in case of the viral or bacterial infection, it also has the increased monocytes, which will go to repair those sites. Now, lymphocytes. Lymphocytes actually are the WBC type of WBC which fights the virus. And there are two types of lymphocytes, B cells and T cells. T cells, I think some of the people must have known this, because that is also important for estimating your immune power of your body. T4 cells and T8 cells, two are the two cells which are very important to. I'm sorry, I'm just take a break. I will just charge my laptop. It is running low. The disturbance. Huh? So we are having then the lymphocytes. So beta cells and T cells, beta cells, I'm sorry. B cells and T cells are responsible for the immune system of our body. If you see the patients of AIDS or HIV patient, they're having the low T cells. That's why they're called immunocompromised patients. So they are the important for this immune system, and that's why they are very important for fighting the virus, particularly viral disease. Even in case of a small viral disease like flu virus, or even some serious like dengue, or even your corona, or even other like HIV. So these are the all fights with the T cells. These are the different aspects of the WBC and blood counts. Now, anybody have any questions regarding this test, blood test? I mean CBC, not on other signs. Okay, sir. If you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Sorry. Thank you, Arun Kumar, for explaining in detail the CBC report, which we generally see, and generally, at least I neglect to see further anything beyond. Inside it, because I have very less understanding of it. Most of us here would also like to know some of the basic things which we should be seeing whenever we see a lab report, when we get one of those patients with diabetes or hyperthyroid or hypothyroid or obesity. So, some of them, like, what do we see in, let us say, LFT for liver function test? So, what are the 2 or 3 things we
See,
should see
I
in
have actually, I have not gone to slightly, but in the liver, if you have a fatty liver, na, that is also indicated in the, I mean, CBC. Say, some reports will tell you whether your liver is correct or not. Say, I'm just giving you, in case of the hematocrit, starting from the hematocrit, if hematocrit is the higher, so that means your liver is not functioning well. That may be the maybe fatty liver or maybe some transient phase. That suppose you are consuming alcohol or for some time there is some injury to the liver. Then actually high value. I mean, sorry. Another aspect is there that your MCHC, that is the, I have told you about the MCHC, that also determines the, if it is the high, I mean high, then your MCHC, then you will be having the pale skin, and that is maybe the due to the functioning of this liver. Second thing, if there is a liver injury, I mean, that is not in the CBC, but the bile will tell you what is the situation in your liver. I mean, secretion of bile juice, secretion of other liver enzyme, which are there. So we'll come to this also. But right now in the CBC, if you have any question, then we'll come to the, I mean, LFT, liver function part.
Yeah, I have one question regarding WBC counts,
Yeah,
because I have seen once I just heard from Robert Lustig. He mentioned that if we have WBC counts higher than 5,
higher than 5, you mean,
higher than 5, the value that they mention in the reports usually,
no, you
that
should, you mean to say higher than 5,000?
yeah, higher than 5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then in that case, the body has a strong inflammation, because he says that 4 to 5 is the, or below 4 is also the normal range, but above 4, above 5, it's
I
the
think,
higher inflammation in the body.
sorry, madam, I could not understand you properly.
Actually, he mentioned that.
Actually, the WBC count normal range is, if you go
Mhm.
to the normal range, it is normally we take 4,000 to 10,800.
Around 10, yeah, 10,000.
10,800, maybe some labs are varying,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
usually it is coming 10,800. Some labs are telling 11,000 also.
Mm-hmm.
So in case your WBC count is higher, then we'll have to look after the differential count of the
Higher in the sense is above 10,000.
above 10,000, because I have seen, unfortunately, he's not here. I think
Mm-hmm.
Sasi, no, some person from Pune, Sasi, his name was actually, D-Life name was some G or something that I have forget the name. He is having 14,000.
Ah, Geo, Geo.
Geo,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Geo. He is
Yeah,
having
but
14,000.
what
Actually,
is the ideal value
ideal
for
value,
TLC?
it should be less than 11,000, but higher value is clear cut indicates that you have inflammation. Now
Okay.
question is what type of inflammation. So you have to go
Mm-hmm.
to differential count. Suppose
Yeah,
it's
okay.
high of the eosinophil. See, it is
Okay.
higher eosinophil. That means you have some allergic reactions. Maybe allergic
Mm-hmm.
reaction, maybe some drug, maybe the thermal allergic, I mean temperature due to fall of temperature, maybe allergic due to the dust, maybe allergic due to some virus, flu virus,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. So that is a clear-cut indication that it is allergy. But if it is the, suppose your lymphocyte is high, that means
Okay.
clear-cut indication that high number of lymphocyte body is producing and bone marrow is producing, because we need to fight some virus like your dengue virus or like your coronavirus or whatever different viruses are there. We need to fight some virus, so body started producing more. Actually, I'm telling you one more
Mm-hmm.
thing. These I mean these cells are being produced in the bone marrow. We all know the blood cells are produced in the bone marrow, and this is produced by one hormone which is released by gland which is just above the kidney. That gland
Mm-hmm.
that gland releases the hormones which in terms regulate the bone marrow to produce particular type of the blood cells. WBC, so which type of blood WBC? That will, they will decide, body will decide what type of WBC I want. So that hormone will come to the bone marrow and they will start it or enhance the function of the bone marrow, and marrow will produce that type of the blood cell. Am I clear?
Yeah, I understand. But sometimes, in most of the reports, what I have seen is that if TLC counts, it's above 7. Then I have seen
Which count, madam?
the TLC, WBC.
WBC, achha, haan.
WBC, it's mostly written total leukocyte counts, no, on the reports.
Actually, there is a total leukocyte counts means total WBC count. It's all the same. We call it total leukocyte count or total WBC. It's the same. But actually, WBC count is higher. I told you. Suppose 11,000 is the upper limit of that WBC. I mean the higher band of the WBC. And you have a 12,000, 13,000, 14,000. I have seen some of the patients even 14,000 above. That means that you have some inflammation, you have some infections. That may be the serious or that is a common infection. But it is continuously it is happening, that indicates malignancy. Malignancy means you have some leukemia, aplastic anemia, or anything like this. These are all malignancy terms. So that need a different type of treatment. You have to go to different type of doctors for the treatment. That clear-cut indicates some malignancy. If it is prolonged, say normally if you have infections, say chest infection or gastrointestinal infection or any viral infection or bacterial infection, you have a WBC higher WBC. And total WBC will be higher. Maybe in that say your basophil will be higher or eosinophil will be higher. But that is a different group. But total WBC is higher. If it is above 11,000, that means some sort of infection or inflammation. Inflammation, why I'm telling you? Because allergic reaction also causes inflammation. So in case of allergic reaction, in case of the infection, bacterial, viral, or even the protozoal infection, like you have a stomach, some protozoal infections. So that also causing the rise of the WBC. Elevated WBC maybe. But if it is a prolonged for month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, that means it's something serious. You may have the leukemia, you may have the aplastic anemia, you may have a different type of the WBC problem. In that case, actually bone marrow is suppressed and our bone marrow cells are taken over by the malignant cells, cancer cells. And they start producing like mad, one by one. So, yeah. Am I clear?
Yeah, I understood. Thank you.
Okay, any other question?
Hello, this is Neha here. So I have 2 questions. I have both my father's and my father-in-law's report. Since we're talking about WBC, my father-in-law's WBC count is very low. So it should be between 4,000 to 10,000. It's at 3,140. So you told if it is higher, what are the infections? What if it is lower? In WBC, in differential, I see monocytes and neutrophils is low.
What does monocytes are low?
Yes, what does this mean?
You have a report with us. What is the status of the neutrophil and monocytes?
So monocytes is 0.8. Absolute is 25. It says it should be between 200 to 1,000. And the absolute neutrophils is 1,300. It should be between 2,000 to 7,000.
Actually, it's for women, it is 3,000 to 7,000. Actually, what I'm telling you that low WBC, maybe the neutrophils or maybe the other WBC, other type of leukocytes, it indicates that your body is not, immune system is not strong. It may be that due to some deficiency of vitamins and minerals, which are responsible, which are responsible for your, enhancing your immune system. So immune system is lower, low immune system. That means they are not able to fight that, disease, inflammation, infections properly. So then you need to have some, it depends on what type of the vitamins deficiency. Normally it is a vitamin C and vitamin zinc, mineral zinc. These two are very important for raising your immune system. So in that case, you have to raise this.
Okay, so I think follow up. What I'll do is check their vitamin C and zinc levels then, and other vitamin levels also.
No, actually, in Indian condition, most of the people are having the vitamin C and zinc deficiency. Most of the people, unless you aware that I have to take, like in during the corona region, people are aware that I have to increase my immune system, I have to enhance my immune system. So they started taking vitamin C and zinc of their own. So that is not that, but you test, it is very good. If vitamin C and zinc you have tested in the lab, then we can determine that what dose of vitamin C and what dose of zinc should be given. So once suppose you started taking 3 grams of vitamin C every day, then your stomach get upset and landed in another problem. If you started taking zinc more than that required, say normally I recommend 10 to 30 milligrams in between. But if it is people are taking more than that, so it may also causing some other problems. So it is not that you have to check. If you check it, it's very good. You check and post a report on the forum. I will say you what dose you should take for the vitamin C and G. Other vitamins, other minerals are also responsible, like chromium, then copper, then iron, then other minerals are also responsible for the immune system. But mainly it is vitamin A, C, E. You understand? A, C, E, and zinc, selenium, chromium, copper. These are the important factors which constitute your immune system. If these are the, not required, you are not taking the food which contains all this in sufficient quantity, then you go for the supplements. Okay.
Okay. Got it.
Actually, I recommend, I should not, I'm against of telling any brand, but since it is a closed group webinar, so you can take Supradyne tablet. If you go to Supradyne tablet, you will find all these components are there. It's a very low cost, but very nice combination. Okay. So if it can post on the, if it is required, additionally zinc or vitamin C, I will tell you.
Okay, got it. And another question is, this is my dad's report. His RBC count is high. Total RBC is 5.8. Hemocritin, everything seems to be in range. His red cell distribution.
What is RDW?
Yes, so RDW SD and RDW CV is higher. What does this mean?
Actually, if you go, say, first you tell your hematocrit is higher.
No, hematocrit is in line. It is 45.36 and the range is 40 to 50.
RBC is higher.
RBC, total RBC is higher. Platelet count is higher.
What is the total RBC?
It is 5.8, 5.9. 5.9. The range is 4.5 to 5.5.
I know that, but it is higher. So in that case, if your RBC is higher, see, is he taking sufficient quantity of fluid? I mean, how much water he is taking every day?
Around 2 to 3 liters, somewhere between that.
No, I recommend to take at least, in my opinion, 4 to 5 liters. Or if you count with the glasses, say normally glasses 250 ml. So actually 10 to 15 glasses per day. He may take plain water, he may take lemon water, he may take water with some, as per his flavors and all. But it should take higher, because the condition is which requires more fluid intake. Because if you see, higher RBC means what? If you're taking a 58, means this RBC is percentage of total volume of the blood. So if your total volume of blood, which is a part of liquid part, is higher, if liquid is low, then naturally RBC percentage will go high. So you have to increase the blood volume. You understand?
Okay. So, yes.
Ask him to take sufficient quantity of fluid, whatever fluid he take, except alcohol, I will say. But he should take fluid, water, nariyal pani or nimbu pani, whatever he like, he can take.
Is it the same logic for platelet count also, that if the fluid volume is higher than platelet count?
Yeah, platelet count, actually platelet counts and hematocrit is correlated. If your platelet count is low, then you will find that normally hematocrit will go high.
It's the other way here. Hematocrit is slightly on the lower reference range, but platelet count is higher.
Platelet count how much?
It is 406. It is 406. The range is 150 to 400.
406. Actually, madam, one thing I tell you, that of course it is in a higher band, but not above the normal range. Actually, lab to lab,
Okay.
it varies. See,
Okay.
some lab are telling 150 to 4 lakhs, some lab telling 150 to 4.5 lakhs, some lab even saying 3.5 lakhs. But that different from lab to lab due to their chemical they are using or reagent they are using for testing the this. But it is certainly he should have some. I mean, I have told you that in case of higher platelets, this is not a good condition, because what is the age of your dad? Can you tell me?
63.
So in this age group, actually, I recommend to keep your platelet in the normal range or below normal range, because the
Okay.
higher the platelets, that platelets functioning will enhance, and the most dangerous thing that it may cause thrombosis. Thrombosis, if thrombosis found in the coronary arteries, then that is a problematic situation. So it is better to keep platelets lower than it is required.
Then how do we do that?
That the fluid intake is one of the things,
Okay.
and fluid intake is one of the things. And second thing, I mean, he has to check whether he has some any sort of I mean. Some aggregation, platelets aggregation, something like Sasikant will tell that he is having CSE. Sasikant, you done the CSE, no? Sasikant, are you listening me?
Yeah. Which one?
CSE, calcium artificial score.
Acha, calcium score. Acha.
So CSE actually, she is having her father is having a high platelets count, and I want that since it is a very high 406. We normally don't have the actual, particularly the elders. So in that case, he can go for the CSE. If CSE is okay, then nothing to worry for that. Thrombosis occurs in case of atherosclerosis only. So in that case, I think CSE or some other test.
CSE. What do you mean is CSE or CT calcium score?
CT calcium score, yeah.
CT calcium.
CT calcium score, you can go. I think it is available all the places or only
it's available all over places. In Mumbai, we can get it done at any of the NM Medical Center. It costs around 7,500 or so. Or even if you can.
Okay.
Where do they stay?
In Bangalore.
It's a Bangalore.
Bangalore, I think it is available. I think so.
So any of the good CT scan centers, they can get this CT calcium score.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So it's a difference.
Otherwise, it will also give you the, some your view of what is the condition of your arteries. Coronary arteries particularly. So in that case, you can take the thing early.
So there's a difference between CT angio and CT calcium score. So we'll have to be very specific to the lab fellow that we'll do CT calcium score. So me and Ashish, we both have done it, and all our, I think, even Ashish, it was 0, I presume. Yeah, Ashish. So even mine is 0.
Okay.
So
very nice.
We both are done.
So Neha, can you tell me what is the blood? Iron level of serum iron level of your father?
It is actually low. I remember it is low, sir. I'll give you the exact number. I'm just going through the report. Is ferritin and serum iron same? No.
No, serum iron is there. I think serum iron is there on the top.
Ferritin is 15.3. It says it should be 22 to 300.
No, ferritin is the same iron. Actually, in iron deficiency anemia also, platelets are going high. In case of iron deficiency anemia also. Or you can say the one thing I tell you, that is another was your father spleen has been removed sometime. Are you? Do you know that?
What has been removed, sir?
Spleen.
No. It is not. It is not.
Right.
I just got his iron range as well. It is 60.5, and the range is 65 to 175.
Actually, in elders, he should take care, because iron, low level of iron will also enhancing the, this platelets count. So that is the one thing you first do, and then you go for the, calcium score. Okay. Bangalore it is available. I think it is Bangalore. It is available.
I will check.
You will check. But first you check the serum iron. You told me you give him some iron supplement. or if you can give him some food which is rich in iron. But better is you
Got it.
go for the iron supplement. I recommend that you should go for the this Feronia XT or Ferium XT, some of the brands which contains iron plus folic acid. So
Okay.
iron plus folic acid should be combined, and this sort of the iron, I mean, ferrous ascorbate is the iron salt name, that is the highest absorption is there. So that's why I recommend always that. Okay, your iron deficiency is there, so that may be the reason for the platelets here. But you go for the, after that you go for also the calcium score. Okay.
Okay, I'll do that. I have one more question. What do we mean by mean platelet volume?
I just discussed it, I
Platelet,
think. Platelet
my
volume.
platelet count is higher, but the volume is lower.
Mean count is higher. Mean platelets volume means it's a volume which, you know, which the volume which is the which determines the platelets. I mean, what do you say? Mean platelet volume. What is the I mean, what is the report says? What is the
So it is 9 to 12 reference range, and my dad has 9. So I was thinking if platelet
no,
count is
9 to 10. Your dad has 9.
9 to 12 is the range, and my dad has 9.
Don't worry for that.
Okay.
Don't worry for that. Actually, you know, sometimes the, you know, slightly lower and slightly higher don't have that meaning.
Okay.
If you check after say 1 month, no, it will be in the normal range or higher than that. It depends on the sometimes this.
No, sir, I was just wondering if the count is higher, then automatically volume should be in the normal. No.
No.
Okay.
No, it is not that. It's not that. So you just check these two things and post your reports in the forum. I will give you the suggest, or first you start giving this
iron supplements. Yes.
Immune supplements is very much required. That is the reason WBC is low. Okay. Okay, sir. Any other sir questions?
Fine. Anyone? Any other question? Anjali, you want to ask something?
Anjali?
She's just unmuting. Fine. What are the common things which we need to look for in a lab report? As I was mentioning earlier, before we came to this, question and answer. So few things like LFT, KFT.
LFT and KFT, we can have some other session on LFT and KFT because that needs to be discussed separately. Because LFT itself is a long part. I mean, it is a component is 7-8 parameters are there. So we need to discuss each and every parameter, and then other different questions that in case of liver, what we should do if in case of the enzymes are higher, enzymes are lower, or gallbladder stone, or anything in that. So we'll discuss separately. I think we can choose any other date. We can sit on that. If you can take to all the members in confidence and ask for the.
Fine. I think, see, one thing, other than going into details, what people would also like to know, which are the few things, just just how, when we have a quick glance, like in LFT, I generally see HGPT, SGOT, and GGT are 3 parameters which I just have a quick glance. Just have a quick glance which I have. When it comes to renal function, what is the quick glance? Maybe we should see the
correct. Quick glance, you LFT you are seeing. Likewise, if you go for the KFT, so you have to 2-3 parameters you have to first see. What I see, first thing is serum creatinine.
Yeah.
First thing, and second thing your this. I'm sorry, I'm just forgetting serum creatinine, and then BUN, blood urea nitrogen. Blood urea nitrogen and serum creatinine, and then you look for the estimated glomerular filtration rate, EGFR.
Yes, sir. Fine.
That gives though that is not a pakka things that this will give you function of the kidney or not. But if it is EGFR is less than, say, normally we tell that if it's less than 90, it's you have kidney have some started doing problem. But suppose it is less than 60, less than 40, then raise alarms. Then we have to go for other tests. But serum creatinine and blood urea nitrogen are two important things we have to look after. Then other things are also there. Then go for the Migral test, I mean microalbumin test. That will also reveal the situation in this. So these are the important things, but initially you go for these three components. So the estimated glomerular filtration rate is the calculated value.
EGFR, yeah.
That is a calculated value calculated on the basis of age, serum creatinine and age. But we don't go for that calculated value. First we go for the serum creatinine, then one, and then we calculate this. We can calculate here also in your sitting on your laptop also you can calculate.
Okay, fine. Now, two things. Anjali has sent a message. She is not able to speak here. If someone is diabetic, what parameters to see and what are those what do those parameters mean?
No, I mean, even parameters in blood or I mean total overall?
It is in blood. It is in blood. I mean, it is a quick glance again. I mean, we need not go into detail.
Diabetic, you know, these all parameters, I mean, CBC is important, of course. This is important. But apart from CBC, she has to take, for a diabetic, the most important thing is your HbA1c. That is the first and foremost, which gives you the, at a glance of last 3-4 months average blood glucose report. Then fasting, then PPBS, then your glucose tolerance test. These are the important things first. But then the consequences of the what you've done, that is the further have to go to long list of the tests, like your kidney function test, liver function test, then your thyroid issue. These are the, because if you have a diabetes now, particularly in the women, I have observed that if woman is diabetic, most of the women are also having the hypothyroid, I mean low functioning thyroid. TSH level is high and T3, T4 level is low. So that is the, I have correlated, because in my opinion, or what I observe, in my opinion, that women, when they go for the post-menopause phase, there is a very 360-degree change of the hormone secretion. Estrogen level, progesterone level, and other hormones also change. And these all have the impact on the thyroid. So thyroid has impact. So since diabetic also related to the hormone, after all we are asking for this beta cells and the alpha cells. So these are all the malfunctioning of these two cells are causing the diabetes. So these are starting from the thyroid, say, and then I mean kidney thyroid. I mean that is then your other hormones like progesterone, estrogen, everything is counting. So for women, it is very evident that there is a clear-cut link between the thyroid, hypothyroid, and the diabetes. If you see, most of the women are having this link.
Right. So see, Anjali, let me just put it this way. You know, let me just a few things which I will look forward for any diabetic. I mean, if it is an existing diabetic or if it is a new existing who is already taking medication or someone who is not taking medication. So what I'll see immediately is HbA1c, fasting PP, and I will also measure fasting insulin immediately, because fasting insulin and fasting blood sugar together give the HOMA-IR value, that is the insulin resistance. Now, this is only useful for newly diagnosed diabetic. It may not be too much useful for someone who is already on medicine. Okay. The other thing which I'll see immediately is the liver function test. So SGPT, SGOT, GGT value are some of the few things which might indicate fatty liver. And then the renal function test, is the kidney affected, microalbuminuria, and creatinine, as you mentioned. What does creatinine mean? It means, see, it's one of the byproduct or waste product of protein, which is excreted very normally in everyone. And however, if our kidney is not functioning properly, then this creatinine may not be excreted very well, and hence the creatinine will start rising. So Anjali, that answers your question. And
so see, one more thing you can add.
Yeah.
That for diabetes blood test, lipid, I mean, triglyceride and SGL levels should be also measured. Yeah, that gives you the, I mean, indication of the insulin resistance.
Fine. That's true. In the lipid level, whenever in the cholesterol report, I usually see TG and HDL. So triglyceride upon HDL ratio ideally should be 2 and below. anything above that indicates solid insulin resistance. Your other question was uric acid. Okay, this is again a very normal physiological process. It is being eliminated. However, again, in certain condition, uric acid may not be eliminated properly, or excess uric acid may be forming. Okay, now what happens is we have seen in some of the low carb people, initially the uric acid will start increasing. This is simply because there is a competition between excretion of ketones and uric acid. So it may be transient in some people. So people who enter ketogenic diet, there's going to be a fight between those ketones which are not effectively used and the normal uric acid which is there has to be excreted. So in people who are not very well fat adapted, your body cannot use ketone properly. So it will get excreted and hence there is a competition. That is one. Second, it can also indicate a state of dehydration. If you are too much dehydrated, it can see a small rise in uric acid level. So this is how. So there could be a small transient increase in most who adopt low carb ketogenic diet, which should not be worrisome, unless it has risen to a very high level and then they start getting some, some issue in their toes normally. Otherwise, a small increase here and there, it should not be actually, there is no need to worry. This thing can also be resolved by taking some, what is called as apple cider vinegar, lemon juice. So essentially this resolves uric acid issues also. So in our case, it's transient. So then, coming back to what you'll look forward for in a diabetic patient. Okay. So other than this LFT, KFT, lipid panel, and your blood sugar report, also try and look into those vitamin level, vitamin D and B12. Very often you'll always find these levels are also very less, especially B12, since most of us are vegetarians. 200, 300 could be the average level. And it is very good to have somewhere around 500 ideally. And vitamin D, I mean, whatever we say is very less. While the threshold or the base level is 30, many of us now know that the ideal level could be above 50 also. There is no issue. In fact, last November, my level was around 93. So there is no issue. And the toxicity level goes above 150 or something. I think Arun Kumar can also throw light on this. Toxicity goes above 150. And it is very difficult to reach this level unless we are taking supplementation in tons. Almost one cap of 60K for next 4 to 5 to 6 months. It is very difficult to reach that level. So there is these are the few things which I think we should look forward. And if the patient is on medication, then there is not much point in measuring insulin, especially those who are taking sulfonylurea or other class of medicine, which is as it is going to release the insulin. One thing. Now the other critical thing to look forward is if we measure the what is called as C-peptide level. So C-peptide level comes only when there's an endogenous insulin release, not an exogenous. So C-peptide can indicate that if there is adequate or inadequate insulin secretion level. So it can also indicate that the juice which is secreted is far, far less. That means the person has reached such a stage that he is not producing much of insulin. Or it could be a case of, maybe the other case like LADA also, someone proceeding towards autoimmune disease or proceeding towards type 1. So these are the few things, we need to look forward. We can do this LADA test also, which will indicate the autoimmunity status. So at an immediate glance, these are the things we do. And my favorite test is when I ask people to get Thyrocare Arogyam X, because this covers everything possibly we wanted to know. It doesn't include C-peptide, of course, but it includes insulin and all. And maybe down south, you can do this Orbito Asia labs. So they also have this, cardiometabolic or cardiodiabetic level. They have different parameters, but I think that works very well. So this is how we can go through. So these are a few basic things which you can immediately look for. You want to add something, Arun Kumar?
Yeah, it's all right. Actually, you were just talking about the vitamin D toxicity. I would like to make it clear to all my friends and members here that don't fear of the toxicity. See, I have never seen a patient having the vitamin D level above 150 or even above 100. I see maximum of 80, 90. That's all. But don't fear. You take your vitamin D and regularly, because vitamin D, if you're taking, it is being consumed also by our body. So it is very essential, not for fighting virus and coronavirus, but it is very essential for making many of the hormones. If you are low in vitamin D, hormones manufacturing will be also affected by body. So don't worry, take vitamin D. As per Sasi, you can go for 5,000 IU per day, or as per the standard practice, 60,000 per a week. But check after 3 months, every 3 months.
I think very safely what I see is, I also recommend maybe for some people who are a little afraid, maybe 1,000 units plus K245 microgram. This is a standard available formulation in Amazon. If you buy from Doctor's Best, so maybe we can just pop in 1 or 2 pill every day. So this is also a good way. Or the other way is 60K once or twice a month. So even if we take this, it's very ideal. And
because actually once twice a month, now people used to get forget.
Yeah.
That's a month is over and I have to take this. That's all.
Acha, can you throw some light on high TG level, those who are being LC for a while? Yeah. So Anjali, what happens is, first of all, high triglyceride also indicates a few things. First of all, insulin resistance, of course. And the other thing is that there is a possibility that they are still having little more carbohydrate.
And maybe they are losing weight.
Yeah. So I was just coming to that. So even when they're losing, they're having little more carbohydrate. The other thing which we commonly say is those who are on a weight loss phase, and that is the time the fat cell releases the fats, and when they release the fat, it will be in form of triglyceride and free fatty acids. So it is possible, it is transient, and there may be very few cases those who are on hardcore keto, as it has been seen in Dave Feldman's group, that some people coffee actually affects in few people, that there is a possibility that high TG could be there on those who are very strong keto and coffee, and there's a possibility that that they are not taken adequate fasting window. Okay, it has to be some 10 to 12 hours is the one.
I have observed, Sasi, if you don't know, I have observed, sorry to interrupt you, that many people are taking the seed oils. That seed oil, I mean vegetable oils. Not, we recommend coconut oil, ghee, butter. But people are using seed oil that is equally dangerous than compared to carbs. So that also causing the high triglyceride level. So we have to avoid that also.
Fine. And if we take a non-fasting reading, the reading will be quite high, because once I took a non-fasting reading within 2 hours of my breakfast, a high-fat breakfast, it was some 300 or something. But then I'm not afraid, because there is going to be anyway utilized as energy. The issue is when we take it in fasting, that means it's not from dietary, it's from liver made, and which would not be actually.
Fasting means it should be 14-hour fasting. Of course, I read some time back an article from a person who is telling that you have to take your reading, lipid reading after food. That is the exact position what your body is having the lipid. But that they have a different opinion. But normally it goes for fasting. 14-hour fasting is required for that.
Yeah, Anjali, so your comment which you mentioned, high protein actually reduces TG. Okay, when you take little more protein, obviously you're going to reduce some energy. Okay, maybe in form of fat or even carbohydrate. So maybe, there's a possibility that some people can respond to that also. But then it is usually these few things. Okay, maybe a little more carbohydrate, maybe in a weight loss phase, and maybe some coffee sensitivity could be the issue for few people. So broadly, anything else anyone wants to know? Or can we have a quick session on this anti-diabetic? I have a few slides to show.
Sure.
So all of you can put yourself on mute if they're not put on mute. So some of the common anti-diabetics which are available. Okay. Now, first of all, what we use is shown in the left: sulfonylurea, insulin, the meglitinides, biogonides, GLP-1 agonists, SGLT2, thiazolidinediones, DPP4, alpha-glucosidase inhibitors. Okay. Now, sulfonylureas are one of the oldest drugs, and how they act is they will make your pancreas or beta cells release insulin. Okay. So these drugs will go and they latch themselves to the beta cells, and then they will make them release insulin. So that is how the function of the sulfonylurea. Now, insulin, we know it is exogenous insulin, and what is meglitinides are also somewhat similar to the sulfonylureas. They will also release insulin. And bigonides, we all know, it is metformin, the famous metformin. The other versions are fenformin, which was used earlier, which is now not used. And this is something which we will say that, all the low carb authorities, they are in favor of using metformin or the bigonides, and they do reduce insulin resistance. At least it will take care somewhat, to the root cause. So GLP-1 agonists are something, which are newer class of drugs which are available. They're all injectables, and they are found to be, highly effective in not only blood sugar control, even in weight loss. And it appears to be fairly good class of drugs. And SGLT2 is something which is taking the world by storm. Okay, this is a new class of drug, and this is possibly it is going to replace or overcome most of the other drugs which is available, because the basic function of SGLT2 inhibitor is it will prevent the reabsorption of glucose at the kidney level, at the renal level. What happens is that the normal physiological process that some sugar is reabsorbed from the kidney, from the bladder to back to the system. So this will prevent that. So essentially, it is something like throwing away the sugar. So if it throws away the sugar, it will also throw away some water, and along with it with some salt. So hence it also reduces volume. It effectively reduces blood sugar. It's a beautiful drug, and it is found to be highly effective in especially in heart failure patients, when you require volume reduction, when you require blood sugar control. However, and the funny part is the entire effect of SGLT2 inhibitor is very, very similar to what is called as a ketogenic diet. Now, something about SGLT2 inhibitor is not discussed is one of the benefit of SGLT2 comes from its effect on ketones. It actually releases ketones, or it has a ketonemia effect, and ketones are found to be one of the superfuel for brain and for all the end organs and all the kidney and the heart. Hence, all the heart failure patients, they do tremendously well with SGLT2 inhibitor. So this is a drug which is now going from a diabetologist to a cardiologist now, and every cardiologist feels that this is their drug. This is the funny part. Now, suddenly with SGLT2 inhibitor, every cardiologist is very confident of treating diabetic patients. So this is something, me and Arun Kumar, we know since we are from the industry. So this is a very costly drug.
Actually, Sasi, it has been approved by the US Cardiologist Association for use of in the diabetic patients.
Yeah, and now they are also approving this even in heart failure patients without diabetes. Okay, but now we know that essentially all heart failure patients are actually diabetic, or at least they have insulin resistance in the background. So that's how this works very well. And the other class of drug is thiazolidinediones, or what is called as pioglitazone, or the earlier version rosiglitazone. Yeah, so this also takes care of insulin resistance. However, it has a lot of other adverse effects. It builds up fat cells, but it builds up irreversible fat cells. So people are bound to gain weight over a period of time. And DPP-4 is another new class of drug which will be effective only when the patient eats something. So these are some small hormones, which will effectively go to the pancreas and release insulin. Now, what DPP-4 does is it will destroy those hormones, and what DPP-4 inhibitors will do is to destroy this DPP-4 so that the hormones stay a little longer and keep releasing insulin. So this is again a comparatively safer one for those who are on low carb ketogenic diet, because it is not likely to cause hypoglycemia. Another one is alpha glucosidase inhibitor, or acarbose or voglibose type of drugs. Now, this is something which will prevent the absorption of glucose from the digestive system. So to put it simply, this may not be very, very useful in low carb diet where anyway patients are reducing the carbohydrate content. So it's not going to be effective. So broadly, these are the class of drugs which is available. So what we need to be very careful is whenever we treat these patients, we will have to, as far as possible, remove them from sulfonylurea, insulin. The meglitinides is now rarely used in India, so not to worry about it. The sulfonylureas, insulin, and even GLP-1 agonists we can remove. The first drug which we should remove is SGLT2 inhibitor, because SGLT2 inhibitor can cause what is called as ketoacidosis, even in a well-controlled patient. So this along with the ketogenic diet, can give rise to ketoacidosis. So this is the first drug that should be knocked off. SGLT2, I suggest ideally we should stop this drug and only then put the patient on a low carb diet, and then maybe others will just see alpha glucosidase inhibitor like acarbose or voglibose we can just stop, and rest of them we can we can just evaluate. We can just slowly titrate the sulfonylurea and we can slowly titrate the sulfonylurea downwards. There is no immediate urgent need to remove bigonide or metformin. So today the popular drug which is used is sulfonylurea, insulin, metformin, SGLT2 inhibitors, and DPP4. These are the few drugs which are used. DPP4 also, let it be. There is no hurry. There is no risk of hypo. We can slowly remove. Now, some of the drugs which is used in sulfonylurea are glyclazide, glimepiride, and gliburide, or it is known as glibenclamide in India. It is known as gliburide in US. And meglitinides are nataclynide, repaclynide, not used anymore in India now, very rarely. SGLT2 are something which is now used in almost all patients. Canagliflozin, dapagliflozin, empagliflozin. It is taking the world by storm. DPP4 are linagliptin, sitagliptin, saxagliptin, alogliptin are some of the drugs which is available. And GLP-1 agonists are all those injectable ones, liraglutide or exitonide and dulaglutide. Some of them may not be available here. And pioglitazone, yes, it is still available. It is used very less. Bigonide, metformin, we know very well, safe. And acarbose is something which we can stop immediately. There is no harm even if the patient takes, but then unnecessarily it keeps causing gas and everything. Okay, so we'll not go into insulin. So these are the few class of drugs. We need to be very, very, very careful about SGLT2, remove them immediately. Sulfonylurea, we'll have to keep a close watch because they will keep prodding the insulin, prodding the sulfone up now, pancreas to release insulin. The other drugs, we can take time. There is no hurry. There is no hurry with DPP4. There is no hurry with even metformin. We can keep removing them, titrating them very slowly. As it was done in the case of even Neha's father, where under the guidance of Arun Kumar, we slowly titrated glipizide, glyclazide slowly downwards. Yeah, anything else anyone wants to know? So this was a very quick one. We didn't go into details. Anjali, you want to know something? You can type. Jasmeet, Ram Gopal. So other than this, if you have any other question also we can address. Any other small doubts? If you
any other questions, even on drugs or whatever, any other field?
Fine. Anjali doesn't have any question as of now. Fine. Ram Gopal, Jasmeet, Neha.
I just have one question. I need to know what if the sodium levels are low? It is not covered in the reports today we discussed, but if the sodium levels are low, is taking pink salt will improve it?
Okay, pink salt also you can improve, but why pink salt? It's a normal salt can improve it. Actually,
the normal table salt is also okay.
Actually, it's actually some of the misconception among the people that pink salt is the best. Of course, that is the purified and other, but normal the salt which you are taking, that is sufficient. You can take pink salt also, but sodium level in the normal salt is higher than the pink salt.
So if we are taking low carb,
so what? Low carb, okay. But I have never changed to pink salt other than some of the religious purpose in the home they prepared for the pink salt. Otherwise, I prefer always for the normal salt. Best is the normal salt.
Okay.
For pink salt, there is nothing bad about that. But I think the sodium level of the normal salt is higher than the pink salt. I have not the data right now, what is the percentage, but take normal salt.
Okay.
And the other question from Anjali is why this stall happens, especially in someone for weight loss stall. Now, what we should understand what exactly is a stall. Initially we get a rapid weight loss and then the weight loss comes down. If the weight loss is stagnant for some time, then we need to see a few things, whether they have reached the target weight, or it is possible that the energy consumption is still high. Now, energy consumption can be in form of carbohydrate, can be form of fat also. So even fat is not a free macro, as they say. We cannot consume free fats in tons. So we need to look after that also. When the patient has achieved a normal weight, then maybe they can increase fat. But if they still have a lot of stored fat in them, then they need to lower down fat a bit. Maybe they can do a little more intermittent fasting or little extended fasting also. Maybe 1 day, 1 day, 2 day. So that will allow the stored fat to come out. Yes, hormones do play a vital role, especially females. It's going to be a little difficult for them, but then they need to persist. We need to combine diet, we need to combine exercise, and we need to combine the other factors. Like there could be a possible of stress also. So if there is an underlying stress, so that could also happen. If the food is lower, then it also impact. Yeah, naturally, what happens is, see, if we keep food lower, then there will be also an issue that patient might go into hypocaloric. So it will slow down metabolism as well. You are right, Anjali. That is true. So that's why we need not go into low caloric on a. If we go on a low calorie on a constant basis for 15-20 days, 1 month,
that will be another problem. That
yeah,
will be another problem.
So maybe one.
Actually, low calorie, I suggest if the weight loss is stalled, suddenly, initially the weight loss comes from the water loss, which you will fastly will absorb the weight is going on, losing. But after that, sometime the water loss is over. Now the real weight loss has started. So there are two factors. One thing, exercise more. If you are not hypothyroid, if your thyroid is acting normal, then maybe you need a very, very extensive exercise. The best is the walking. Walk properly, say 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and brisk walk. And then carbohydrates should be restricted up to 20 to 50 grams per day. In between, what is your carbohydrate tolerance level that you can judge? Accordingly, we change. Weight loss will be there. Protein consumption should be higher. Protein will build muscles, not the fat. So you need to take difference between the two. So protein can take, that will not ask you to go for the carving or hunger pang. So better you go for the protein and fat. And most of the fat are coming along with the protein.
Fine. So Anjali, to address this question, maybe we can have this, we can have, little more bit of fasting for this type of people, so that, they achieve, if they don't normally feel much hungry, they keep taking less, maybe, an extended fasting can help. So then maybe we can have one more session, maybe later on, we will discuss on this topic very deeply. So I hope, today we can end this session now. It's already 1.5 hours. So yeah, so they have a case, carbohydrate is 50, protein 65 to 75, fats 60 to 75.
What's the question?
The question is, it is given in the chat box, there's a case where carbohydrates are less than 50 grams, protein 60 to 75, and fat 60 to 70. So still they are not able to, lose weight.
So then what is the exercise level? That is the important thing. No?
Put up some activity level. We need to fix for some people, they respond very well without exercise, but some people, we have to have a combination of exercise, combination of fasting as well as carbohydrate. Maybe reduce the carbohydrate bit more, maybe reduce the added fat bit more. The best way is, as far as possible, if the added fat is reduced, it is okay.
What is the TSH level? They should also, TSH level is normal.
So we'll have to look at that also.
Then it should be exercise. She should go for the exercise.
So Anjali, maybe we'll have, we'll have one more session to exclusively talk on the weight loss talk. Otherwise, the session will be too big, and the others will also find it very difficult to manage time. So thank you very much. And this was quite interesting. Thank you, Arun Kumar, for really explaining detailed about the CBC. We got some insights to it. And in future programs, we will have suggestions and on what specifically we'll talk, and then we'll have a little more participants. So I thank everyone for joining this session.